Well, President Trump has endured several long weeks with the Manhattan courthouse trials. At long last, the commencement of closing arguments began this morning, and it potentially will go through tomorrow. There very well could be a decision by the end of the week on whether or not Trump is found guilty. Sarah Murray went on CNN this weekend stating the worst case scenario for Democrats would be Trump getting acquitted. Oh, boy, watch this.
It's very likely this is the only trial that we are going to get before Election Day. And this case is not a slam dunk, which means that Donald Trump may very well not be convicted. Acquitted is the worst case scenario for Democrats, because then it's the only trial you have, and Donald Trump gets to go out there and say, Joe Biden's prosecutors, which again, not true, came after me. His Department of Justice came after me, and they still didn't convict me. I'm still innocent. I also think you could end up somewhere in this sort of muddy middle where you end up with a hung jury, a jury that cannot reach a verdict. And then this truly does just get kicked to the voters to decide.
Oh, yeah. A hung jury, I think, is more likely than an acquittal. I just don't see that happening. Not in Manhattan, not with this jury, not at this time. But the defense told the jury today that they did not meet the burden of proof, period. There is no evidence of any crime, that Donald Trump didn't commit any crime, and we're not even clear what the crime is, to be honest with you. So, you know, we're trying to sort this out. And Todd Blanche, the lead attorney, also reprimanded for telling the jury that you can't send the former president to prison for this, at which point the judge, not impressed. In the courtroom at that time was our own Ben Berquam. He got to see that little explosion firsthand. He's standing outside the courtroom in Manhattan right now. Ben, nice to see you. You did see this exchange. Give us the color play-by-play.
Yeah, it was probably the one of the most fiery moments I've seen in there. The judge says that what the attorney Blanche said was outrageous. His words were outrageous, and basically it was for saying that these charges could put President Trump in prison, which is what the Democrats want. I'm paraphrasing what Attorney Blanche said. And somehow that's out of line when clearly that's what this is all about. It's about taking President Trump off the campaign trail, and ultimately it's about keeping the Trump derangement syndrome leftists happy, and they'll only be happy when President Trump is behind bars or worse. That's what they really want.
Clearly, it's what they want. So here we are. I'm told that the prosecution could spend 4.5, or even 5 hours laying out their case, whatever their case is. And look, you see the polls the same as I do, Ben. More new polls just moments ago coming out of Michigan showing Donald Trump with a consistent 2 to 3 point lead in that very important swing state, true in all the other swing states. The only one that's even close right now is Wisconsin. Right now, if the election were held based on everything that the people have seen done to this former president, they're going to choose Donald Trump because of the economy, because of the border, because of what's going on the global stage as well. This is a sideshow, politically motivated, and people know it. And when I say people, I mean Republicans, Democrats, and independents, don't they?
Yeah, they do. The one thing that this does, if they do get the conviction, which, speaking of those leftist Trump derangement syndrome, I actually got to question Lawrence O'Donnell from one of the fake news outlets as he came out. These guys are salivating for it. If they get that, the entire purpose of this isn't even about justice. It's about delegitimizing President Trump. And it's not just for Democrats. It's for the Republicans, the rhinos of the Republican Party, the Nikki Haley faction of the Republican Party. So ultimately, it's trying to get President Trump off the ballot, either by the Republicans selling him out, throwing him under the bus, which that won't happen, or the Democrats trying to get him off the ballots, or just getting Republicans not to vote for him because he has a criminal record. That's what this is all about. It's all political. It's clearly all political. But you're right. If we had fair elections and they were held today, there's no question about it. President Trump wins in a landslide. The big question, elephant in the room, is, are we going to have fair elections when virtually nothing's been done to secure them from 2020 or 2022? And on top of that, you've got, another several months of this to go. And that's what I keep asking. I got to talk to Don Jr. earlier today, and I said, okay, what are they going to do after this fails? And, that's the big question. What's next with these guys? And nothing's
Well, I do think CNN was right about one thing, Ben.
Vicious.
I think the CNN was right about one thing. This is the only trial you get. Everything else has been pushed back. Judge Eileen Cannon in the documents case now said there will be no gag order there, so that we're past that nonsense, at least in that trial. And so some important things are happening. But what I see is Donald Trump with a swagger and a boldness. I mean, he's going to New Jersey. He's going to the South Bronx. Yep. This trial is slowing him down, but people are still seeing on the days, Wednesdays and weekends when he's available, he's out there meeting people in places that Democrats don't expect him to be. I mean, the last president or presidential candidate to be in the Bronx was Ronald Reagan in the fall of 1980. As I recall, Ronald Reagan won that election. So going to the Bronx, and I'm hearing that he might be going to Chicago, he might be going to Philly, he might go to Los Angeles, California. These are just rumors swirling around, and why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you take that show on the road? Because even if you're not going to win California, the show you could put on in Los Angeles would capture the country's attention, wouldn't it?
It would. And one thing to keep in mind is for the Democrats to steal it, they don't have to steal everywhere. We saw this in 2020 and 2022 and some of the races. They just have to steal strategically. But what's interesting is what the Democrats have done is they've opened themselves up. They didn't, this is my prayer through all of this. What the enemy means for evil, God uses for good. President Trump had no plans of campaigning in New York, as far as I know. But now what they've done is he's basically said, well, I'm going to take every opportunity I have. And now the Democrats are seeing the shift in the inner city for President Trump. And what nobody's talking about is what does that mean for them? Now they may have to steal it in places they never planned to steal it. So again, it's
well, they can't. That's the point. It brings me back, Ben, to too big to rig, because you can't game it everywhere. It's too complicated. I don't care how good you are, you're not that good. And more complicating factors, if, say, Bob Menendez in New Jersey decides to run as an independent in that Senate candidate and could split the Democrat vote, you could end up with a Republican for the first time in a generation in New Jersey. You could end up with, I get Larry Hogan and Donald Trump are not exchanging Christmas cards, but Larry Hogan could win in Maryland. You've got things happening. New Hampshire now in play. Donald Trump leading by just a fraction in a very recent poll. But New Hampshire's now in play. Virginia's in play. Minnesota is in play. I mean, expanding the board is what he's doing by doing all of these rallies, even part-time.
Yeah, no, you're right. But the bigger part to that is if and when, and that's my prayer, President Trump does win. And as you said, Steve, everyone has to vote. Everyone has to get out there. We have to vote as if our life and our country depends on it, because it does. But even if he wins, we have to get the House and the Senate, and you have to get rid of the rhinos. So there's a whole bunch more. There's a lot more fights coming no matter what. And this is just part of that. But that Democrat strategist, that pollster, they're all right. If Trump gets acquitted on this thing, it is a disaster for the Democrats.
Oh, if Trump gets acquitted, Ben, his lead in the polls will double. I mean, I haven't heard anybody say that. I don't anticipate that. I'll just be on the record here. I do not anticipate this jury acquitting him.
I don't either. I think it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, but even a hung jury creates huge problems that I think I think Donald Trump gets a bump off a hung jury. I do. Ben, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. I think you're right. I think ultimately it's a foregone conclusion when you see Alvin Bragg in there. And I saw one of the jurors look at Alvin Bragg when they played Michael Cohen's audio tape talking about how excited they were about President Trump being taken down. I saw a juror look at Alvin Bragg and smile at him. I think some of this is a foregone conclusion. But either way, again, my prayer that Americans should agree with me on is that what the enemy means for evil, God uses for good. And that's my prayer in all of this.
All right, Ben Bergquam from Manhattan. Thank you, Ben, for weighing in today. Greatly appreciated, as always. From the Darien Gap to the war zone of the trial in Manhattan. Ben is everywhere. All right.